What's happening, everyone? Welcome to the Legged Podcast. Before this show starts, I just want to take a minute and tell you all about the secret perks you get if you sign up on Patreon. Now, to sign up on Patreon, it is £1 a week, that's it. And by doing so, you get early access to all our guests. You get an extra episode on a Wednesday that is only available just for Patreon members only. On a Saturday, we do a betting show where we've landed some pretty big bets, to be fair.
Yeah, cross footy and boxing and MMA. We
do live events, quizzes, you get early access to all them, and anything else we've got going on, it all comes to you first for those who support on Patreon. No better time to sign up. We've got about 100 episodes, maybe, of Patreon episodes, which are hilarious, if I do say so myself. All there available for you now. Get signed up. It's £1 a week, and we'll see you over there. Can I get 2 beers, please?
Of course.
Thank you very much. What is happening? You all right?
I'm all right. Are you?
Good. You ready for episode 1?
I am. A couple of beers.
Couple of beers.
We're going to go back to...
you got a subject?
I have. It's my subject this week. We're going to fire subjects at each other.
Yeah.
And then we're going to... Obviously, we're going to put it out there for people to give us.
Yeah, out there for you to throw us in your ideas, what you want us to talk about. But
yeah. But this...
First rain, go on.
Yeah, first one for me is... I'm going to go back to when we was in Iceland. As you know, I'm a pretty driven guy. As these podcasts go on, you'll understand why. And you'll understand that most people's drivers are based out of, some people might call them traumas, but I'd say past issues for now. But what I'd never done, which we did when we was out there was 2 things. One that I remember in terms of me and you. One,
thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Is number 1, I wrote my eulogy for the first time, which I found really, really interesting.
It's that exciting weekend, by the way.
Hey, and I've kind of broken that down afterwards, but the second thing is I remember is I put you on the spot a little bit.
I remember it. I remember feeling uncomfortable.
Thought, you know what? The idea was to feel uncomfortable, wasn't it? So when you done your speech in the morning, you got a big round of applause on day 2, and we was doing goal setting, right? Which is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how you get somewhere, really, because you got to have objectives, and you've got to have marginal gains build up to them.
I love the fact, by the way, you've got your first week in the first topic and you say it's goal setting and you bring it back to a point where you made me feel uncomfortable. So nice one for that.
Well, there you go. But that's the point, innit? So what actually happened was you gave your big speech, right? Which I've heard a million times. And still sometimes I'm like, fucking hell, don't go, right? Because I'm a bit mad with stuff like that, you know. So I'm sat there listening to you over breakfast, and then you talk about all the things that you've done and all the things that you've achieved, which the guys and girls who listen to your podcast will be well aware of. But then I thought, what's your next goal? So as everybody else was doing it, you did a talk, and I'm like, Andy, what's your next goal? And I think you're at your best from the times I've known you when you've got a goal. And I think the times where I've seen you drift, be less happy even, is when you're not. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's talk about going back to, I don't know, your goal after you got blown up in Afghanistan. What was your goal?
Mate, I think you've nailed it on the head, first and foremost, about me being uncomfortable and vulnerable, because, and what I loved and I didn't like maybe as much was because my day job now, as cringeworthy and egotistical as this sounds, as you go around doing talks and everyone's like, wow, you're amazing, you're this, you're that. And again, for the first time in Iceland, it was back on me. And obviously, you're a good mate of mine, you know me more than most, and you were able to kind of go with this. So that, for me, was a bit... And it made me feel that way. It was a bit of a, you know, a truth bomb going off, is because, yeah, the truth is, for a long time now, I've been kind of resting on my laurels, in my comfort zone, not really setting big goals. And I think it comes back to probably getting blown up. And my initial goal was, believe it or not, I never even had a dog at the time, but all I wanted to do when I was lying there in this bed, right, was I wanted to just be able to walk the shop, buy the newspaper, with my dog, go home, sit there and read it. And I think, you know, when you're so fucked, you know, when you've got your health's gone, you don't even want to be able to walk.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So for me, anyone who's kind of, like you say, read the book, listened to the podcast, or saw me climb any mountains, don't get it twisted. I never had any of these goals when I was lying in the bed. All I wanted to do was walk the shop, buy the newspaper, read the back pages over a cup of tea in my house, in no pain. So the goals of mine, which ended up, you know, breaking the 10K record, etc., and all that, definitely come later on in life. But for me, what made me most uncomfortable in Iceland is this comfort zone I fell into.
Yeah.
Because I've had these big, crazy goals of, you know, getting out of a hospital bed and, you know, eventually being able to walk the shop, to then climbing mountains, to then breaking 10K records. And I'm really proud of myself, by the way, for doing those things and now forging the career in motivational speaking that I've got. But since this kind of mini podcast series is about feeling vulnerable, if I'm being completely honest, I do massively feel like I've got imposter syndrome these past few years, because since probably 2018, I mean, now 2020, that's 5 years. I don't feel like I've set a goal. I don't feel like I've pushed myself. So I stand on these stages doing talks and everyone's saying how amazing I am, getting standing ovations, where if I'm honest deep down, I'm like, I'm not doing fucking anything here. I'm telling you what to do to live a better life and do this, but I'm actually not doing it myself. Hence the reason why I thought, you fucking bastard, because you probably know me yourself, know me, I've not really done nothing. And I think it's such an important one for goal setting. And before I kind of let you speak, the other thing that frustrates me, maybe you might have an answer for me, or people at home might, is what pisses me off is you see loads of stuff on social media. Instagram Reels are my guilty pleasure. I'll sit there and go through so many of them. And there's so many great words of wisdom and motivational quotes. But it's like, whatever your goal is, you've got to do this and do this and do this to get to it. And I'm a bit like, what you do if you haven't got a goal? Like, what you do if you haven't really got that final destination yet? And that's why it's probably a good topic to start with, because I think people start the new year with New Year's resolutions. But what you do if you don't really know where you want to be?
I think that one of the things that we're pretty crap at doing, I definitely am, is actually spending time on doing it. One of the reasons why we was in Iceland, we mentioned a bit on the, you know, on the introduction on the first podcast, is it was to get people who are busy to take a step back. One of the things I don't know, don't ask me why this is, but I think my biggest frustration in life is it's so precious that people drift through it. And they drift through life, and if they're not careful, they've never lived. And in reality, in most cases, what's stopping you from living? Because in most cases, we've got the ability to do. You know, I remember Cocktail. You watch Cocktail. I always thought, if life gets so fucking shit for me, you can always go and work on a bar in Barbados and pour rum punches, right? There's a life to that, right? There's so many different things that you can do. You're limited really only by your ability to be objective and set what you want to do. So there'd be a point where all you wanted to do is walk the dog. Well, you started to walk the dog. You would have put little things in place where you walk the dog. You walk the dog, you got the newspaper, and you got bored with that. There was a point where you would have took a step back, and I think that's the important part, where you took a step back and thought, now I want to run. Then you start running. You think, I'm fucking bored of running now, right? Then you go, weirdly, I wouldn't have done this. Then you go, I want to break the world record for 10K. What happens there is you're constantly meeting a goal, but then you're taking that time to you're not drifting. You're taking time at some point to redefine the next step. And I think those people that redefine the next step and stay purposed, they can put little steps in place every single day to make progress, and you just feel better about it. You'd have felt better when, I don't know what your first 10K time was.
Mate, 100%. 100%. I have felt at my best when I'm working towards a goal. And I know what I feel like when I'm just floating through things. But whether it was writing the book, whether it was the world record, whether it was training for a mountain, when I've known I've had a goal, I've just felt so happier in myself. I've felt like a better son, a better father, a better friend, so much happier in myself. And that's what frustrates me sometimes when you haven't got a goal. And that's been a bit of my frustration at the moment, that there's nothing really that's excited me so much. And that's one of the reasons I loved that weekend in Marbella, because I look at someone like yourself, who's, you know, successful in their own way for many different reasons. And I sometimes look and I go at you, I think, where are you getting these goals from? Because you kind of do it, and it's like boom, 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 boom. And there's a bit of me that looks at you in jealousy to think, fuck, how's he? And there's a bit of me that gets pissed off at myself because I go, I've been like that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I've just then wavered a bit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So do you have those moments where you have kind of, a bit like me, you've peaked and then rather than peak again, which you seem to do, maybe you don't, but you've kind of went off a bit?
So the answer's no, right? I haven't had those. I've always...
Nice one to make me feel like a failure.
No,
nice
because
one.
I'm going to tell you, because this is the thing about this podcast or a general chat is, it's a little bit be careful what you wish for. I know we're all guilty, aren't we, of going, I don't know, fucking why is he always so motivated? But I think my biggest issue is the opposite. Is that there was a point where I remember interviewing Diane Modal, who was a runner, and I think she won the Commonwealth Gold. And I said, what was it like when she won the Commonwealth Gold? And she said, I just remember the national anthem. I remember looking. She could describe being in that moment. She fucking savoured every minute of it. Not that I've ever won a Commonwealth Gold, but whenever I've achieved things that I've wanted to achieve, listen, it's gone within...
You've never had that moment, I think?
No, never. So when I look at myself, I think the opposite of you. I think, Jesus, at what point are you going to, Paul, look back, reflect and think, actually... Not saying you're there, because maybe I'm scared of getting there. Maybe if I'm scared of getting there, what comes next? You know, when I deal with athletes or whatever, chatting to somebody this morning, and it's that, you know, you retire as a player, what do you do? Or you're the world heavyweight champion of the world, you're Tyson Fury, retired for 2 months. You retired for 2 months, because what then? So I've had the opposite problem to you in that I just go, goal achieved, next goal achieved, next goal achieved. But then there becomes no satisfaction in achieving a goal. I don't think I've ever.
I've dined out on my goals for the last 5 years.
But so it is, you know, it's funny when you look at, I look at people and go, God, I think I wish, but you always wish for something you haven't got.
Yeah,
let's be
the grass is
truthful
always
about this.
greener, yeah.
Right. I always wish to think, I wish I could have a goal, achieve it, just take it in, take a breather. And that might even be 2 days, mate. I just do it, and I don't know what it is with me, but I feel like I have to be so purposed for being scared or feared of having a lack of purpose that I just have to go, achieve, and go, achieve. And I think somewhere there's a middle ground.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds from your experience of goal setting and then achieving them, at other ends of the spectrum, and you're probably right, the answer is probably somewhere in the middle, because I definitely wouldn't want to be so much like you where, again, sometimes I speak to you, there's been a week or so I haven't spoke to you, and you're like, boom, and I'm like, fucking hell. And I look at myself and I'm like, what have I done this week? I've been on a couple of runs, I've spoken.
Do you set a goal every day? Do you have a goal every day?
Do you know what I do every day? I have a list, a to-do list. I've seen a YouTube video, one of these cheesy motivational ones, and I do this.
Matthew McConaughey does that. By the way, have you read his book?
No, you told me about it the other day.
It's the best book.
Yeah.
Or on audio.
Traffic light system.
Oh, green lights. But go on, he writes a list every day.
So, and I do them, and I do things that I'm obviously going to do anyway. So I'll put, like, make my bed, have my breakfast, take me protein and vitamin tablets that I take and all this kind of stuff, and so on and so forth. And I do that because I read that once you start marking things off, it gives you like a good positive thing. You know, your first one done on the day, and you're on to the next.
Do you write things down you've already done? I'm like that. If I'm writing a list, and I don't really do them that often, but if there's a list of things in the day and I start writing it, I start to write things that I've already done so I can tick them off.
Oh, yeah, sorry,
you know what I mean?
I've done that.
Gives you the feeling of.
Yeah.
You mentioned something there about your bed. There's the marine.
Yeah,
isn't there?
Famous YouTube one, yeah.
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 You do that every day?
Yeah, you get up and make your bed, yeah. You don't?
I do.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny? Of late, the last few days I've thought, I'm like the bed maker in our house, right? When my missus gets up, I make the bed. For the last few days I've thought, I don't want to make the fucking bed.
See if she makes it.
Nah. Do you know what it's made me think though? I've actually used that analogy to think. I've actually used it to check in with myself. So now the symbolism of making my bed, having watched that video 10 years ago where I was already making my bed every day.
Yeah.
Right, when I was a single lad, I used to live on my own. I wanted to walk into a house where the cushions were right. I wanted to get into a bed that was a fresh bed, if you like. And I can judge myself on how motivated I am to attack the day by how much I can be asked to make my bed.
Mate, yeah, 100% I've done that. 100%. Where there's been days where I'm just like, fuck it, and it does.
But do you do it though?
It kind of. I'll be deadly honest, not every
Really?
day. Yeah, because I guess I don't know, for whatever reason, things going on, and maybe that morning it's not the great. It gets to you, and I always think, fucking hell, God, you're probably not going to have the best day then. But then I've got up one morning, obviously I'm hopping around, you know, in the shower, put my leg on, making the bed, fluffing the pillows, and it's kind of like, today is going to be a good day. So it's something as little as the goal is making your bed, it does set you up. So that's one of the reasons why I do the list making and stuff like that, and it does 100% work. I think the bigger issue, what I've dealt with kind of a lacking of goal setting, if you like, was I know you're from being friends with you, but one of the big things I found, being completely honest, is when I was growing up, a big goal for me was to one day own my own house. Obviously, I got blown up in Afghanistan, and the little compensation that I did get just got me on the property ladder. And then, because I was then pensioned off, that was kind of me. And at 25, it sounds really depressing, this, but at 25, I'd achieved the one big goal I had. Growing up in Bootle, to see kind of most people kind of work the whole life, and then, you know, when they retire and they get pensioned off at 60, they kind of maybe pay the rest of the mortgage off, and then that's them done at 60. That was my goal. I've done that at 25. So it was a bit like, right, what the fuck do you do now? And I think, I'm not trying to blame getting blown up and stuff like that on my lack of goal setting at times in my life, but I definitely think sometimes I just feel like I've achieved the goals, and there's something inside me that I've not really had that drive to think, right, what next? Well, I suppose I have in some ways, but I kind of know in aspects of my life when I haven't got that, or when I'm lacking that. And then that's maybe why sometimes when we've had those kinds of discussions in Marbella or in Iceland, and I do look on in awe of yourself and some of the lads, where I'm like, what gives them that thing in the morning to go, right, I've achieved what I've achieved, I'm successful in what I'm doing, but we go again. And I think that's what fascinates me about being your mate, because I'll be honest, that's what makes me feel like a fraud. I'm this motivational speaker, and I'm sometimes lazy with my goals. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, you've achieved big goals. Let's not fucking lose context.
I'm mega proud of where I am, but this podcast is about being open and honest and vulnerable, and
See, when I was a kid, I always remember, you know, there won't be many Man United fans listening to this podcast. I'm a United fan. I'm not a United fan, but I always remember when, like, George Best lost his way, because I don't know why that resonated with me as a kid. George Best, I don't know, 21 on 20, one of the best players in the world, wins the league or the European Cup, I think, and then all of a sudden, that was the purpose, wasn't it? Yeah. When they did it, it expanded after that. And I always used to look at Roy Keane and think, that's the way to do it. You know, even now I think...
But that's a bit like you, though, when you're saying, I've never met Roy Keane, love to, but he strikes me as the type like you, where he just didn't celebrate anything. He's like, oh, it's done now, go again. But you know what I mean?
And so I look at Roy Keane now, he's changed his persona a little bit in the last 18 months, and he's become, as a pundit, I think he's quite funny and stuff. Brilliant. But there's a point where I thought, this guy just achieved so much, and he's so driven, and, you know, he moves on to the next thing. And there's a point where I thought that's the way to be. But then I looked at him, he's probably, I don't know, 5 years older than me, I guess. I looked at him and I thought, he always looks a bit miserable. Not so much in the last year, because he's kind of changed. Him and Gary and Carragher, they've all become friendly and pally, and Richards is a bit of a buzz. But before that, I used to like he was my role model. I would have used him as a role model for how to keep going. But then there comes a point where you're not happy and you're not satisfied more with what your achievements are. I'm talking about me here. And then you look at him and you think, I don't want to be that 50-year-old guy who's constantly, nothing's ever good enough. No. And my missus will say that all the time. Nothing's ever good enough. You always you do it to 8 out of 10, it needs to be 9. If you do it to 10...
I was going to say that, does your missus ever turn around to you? Because I sometimes, as a mate, look at you and go, fucking hell, he's going to end up on the moon. You know, he's boom, 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 boom. Does your missus ever go to you, Paul, it's fucking enough, you're doing well, enough?
She does.
Because I want a missus, I'm single, I sometimes want a missus to kind of push me on. The joke that me and my dad have, I'm not saying money's my goal, but the joke me and my dad have, I say, the second I meet a woman who can kind of, you know, get a clause in me and make me calm down, I'll be a millionaire in 3 years. Yeah. So with Zeri, you've got that partnership, you've got that marriage, you've got that family. Is she a bit like, Paul, you know, is she like, keep going, or is she like, listen, fucking hell?
I think there's two parts to that. One is she's very understanding with how full on I am. And every now and then she'll say, when's enough going to be enough? And the thing is, I ain't got an answer for that, because there'll be times where she goes, can we just enjoy like the weekend? And I find I have to work harder, enjoy. I have 4 kids, as you know, and they're all different ages. And that's also one of my goals. In fact, we'll come on to eulogy in a minute. You know, one of the things about, come on to it now actually, one of the things that when I wrote down on my eulogy about what I want people to remember me by, the first part I put was a good dad and a good husband. It's not probably, even though that is my main objective in life, that's not what I'm doing today. That's what not what I'm doing tomorrow.
It's focused on work, it's focused on other bits.
Yeah. That's, in some ways, they may become second, third or fourth. But
yet you're wanting everyone's at the end of your life to go, wow, what a guy, what a dad.
So I used to have real dad guilt. That's parenthood guilt. That's going to be a different podcast because we can talk about that again. But actually, there was a point where Tony Bellew was speaking at one of our events, and it was a thing that actually sat with me for a while. He did his book launch in our Liverpool office, and he talked about how committed he was to the cause. He's a family man. He was committed to the cause of being a world champion, and that was beyond everything else. But actually, once he became a world champion, it's going to lead to money. I'm not saying fame, but money. And then more so, it's going to lead to legacy to that family. So in reality, his eulogy was actually, if he was to write, would have been probably similar to mine, maybe similar to yours. But it's actually okay sometimes to put something before other things.
Things that you want to be remembered for.
Yeah, because it can be a short term. It's a necessity in some cases.
I get that.
It's a necessity. And I see what I do nowadays as an essential, it's part of the overall journey. Because the end destination is death, isn't it?
Yeah.
The day before I die, I hope I know the day before I'm going to die, to be honest with you. Because I want to be able to look back and go, fuck, I played it, I played my cards.
Yeah.
And you know, when I was 40 or 38, you know what? My kids didn't get the attention. I tried my best, by the way, but my kids didn't get the attention because work consumed me. But it comes back to that eulogy moment. It was the first time that I'd ever done it. And when you was going to do your 10K, you want to break the world record, you start with your objective and you work backwards.
Yeah.
What I find, and I bet you most people listening to this have not wrote what they want to be remembered by, what's going on the headstone. I know it sounds a bit morbid, but in the end, that's actually all we are.
Yeah.
So at what point do you do that and start working towards it?
Well, it kind of relates back a little bit to what I said in the sense of like having a big goal. Like some people probably don't know what their big life mission goal is. Do you know what I mean? And what they really want to do. And I think that's where the kind of struggle can come from. And again, I know that'll be another podcast, but I think that's where you get your inspiration from. And I know Iceland was a big inspiration for me to be around so many people and get different ideas for goals, etc., etc. But I think that's one of the biggest problems is not having that big goal, what you're kind of really passionate about, and not knowing how to work backwards from it. Because like you say, in business or for most things you will, but in life, I don't think many people do. Kind of picture where they want to be, what the legacy they want to leave, how they want to be remembered, and then work back.
Yeah. What we did in Iceland, if you remember, you'll have to help me out on the 4 things, but we had like a pyramid. And we put how far we'd gone.
Fucking depressed. This
did it? Yeah. So what we did was we had a cross, if you like, and they had 4 compasses, like a compass.
4 circles, you mean that one?
Yeah, we had like a compass, didn't we? And one of it was personal.
Yeah.
One of it was
personal, work,
others, family.
Family. Yeah.
And we kind of scored it. We all scored ourselves. We said. I think you had 20 points to play with. So 10 would have been the peak of the points. So if you said, I'm a 10 at work and a 10 at being a dad or family, you'd have nothing left for you and others.
Yeah.
Right. So there was an argument by one of the people that spoke that said, actually, you want to be a 5. You want to be like...
A 5 in each. And
be
like
a 5, a 5, a 5, a 5.
Spot.
You've got a diamond in the middle. And we all did where we were today. And then we all did where we wanted to be. And I found that quite, just having that time to sit and think, where I want to be is there and where I am is there. I thought it was powerful.
Do you know
it made you depressed going?
It made me depressed in the sense that I kind of went, so a big one for me is that, listen, I've got a great relationship with my little girl. I'm fortunate not with her mum, but we've got a great relationship, which means I get to see my little girl, probably 60-40 to be honest. I'm a very lucky dad. I live next door to my dad. I see my dad every day. So my kind of like family was like about a bloody 12 or something, you know what I mean? Me work, I love doing the motivational speaking. Could I push it more? Definitely. But it's still there. And it was whatever it was. And then the work, what I'm trying to say was the least, because I feel like I've got a good personal life. And so what it was basically family, myself and others, and work was down there. And we went around the room and one of the guys was like, I don't know what you're moaning about. I was like, well, I really want to push myself. I think I can do more and goal setting within work boundaries. And he was like, I'm like a bloody 15 at work. I never see me kids. I never see me dad. I never see. And he's looking at me jealous. And I'm looking at him going, fucking, I wish I had your money. I wish I had. So it was so interesting to know that your goals with someone can be so different. And what I come away from that trip at Iceland being a bit grateful for the kind of things that you have got. But then it did also make me a bit like mindful and not so much depressed, but a bit more just open to thinking, actually, you know what, I can maybe just rearrange a few kind of targets or goals, and maybe, I love the family life, but you could probably tone it down a touch and do some more work stuff. And I know for you it's probably like maybe the opposite, because I know I'll focus you on work and stuff. And so it was really interesting to know about the goal thing. And I did come away from Iceland, I'll be totally honest, feeling like I can do more. It re-energized me to think, I can set more goals. And that's what I think if people are really honest with themselves, who are listening to this and watching this, I think everyone can set more goals. Do you know what I mean? Because it's so easy in today's society with social media and what have you, to just, like you said at the start, you just float. You know, sometimes you go from goal to goal and you just find yourself in this grey area where you just kind of, and it's something I'm guilty of spending too much time in, than actually getting out of it and going, right, next goal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say to the extent that maybe you're at.
Yeah.
But I think
some of them are big goals. So I was the opposite with you. I'm like, I mean, I do try hard to be family. It's very important to me. But half the time I'm not present. I'm there, but I'm not present. And what we actually did was we scored ourselves where we want to be. And then we tried to bridge the gap by saying, let's come up with 4 goals. Let's come up with a goal this year. One for yourself, one for, the family, one for others, and one for, what was the one we just said? Others, yourself, family, work. So work, I already had the goal. It's typical, isn't it? I've already got the work goal of what we're going to achieve. And then others, there's a big part of my drive, we'll come on to on a different topic, is helping other people. So it's like, how do we gain some points, but make that, do more for others, but do it where we're more efficient maybe. So the launch for foundation was my goal, which is we're in the process of doing. But the one goal that I did put down, and it's a simple goal, but it was to put my phone away for 4 hours on a Saturday and a Sunday. Now, I'll be truthful about that as well. I've not achieved that goal.
I don't think anyone listening.
But I tell you what, though, I'll give it a fucking good go. I'll be honest with you. And so at least if I've not done 4 hours, and this is the thing about goals, right? My goal was to put my phone away in a drawer for 4 hours on a Saturday and 4 hours on a Sunday. But do you know what? It's stuck in my head every weekend. And I haven't done 4 hours and 4, but I might have done 1.5 hours Saturday, 1 hour on the Sunday. But if I wouldn't have had the 4 and 4 goal, it'd have been 0 and 0.
Yeah.
I think that's the point about goals.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because sometimes you won't always hit them, but at least it's made its mark to think, actually, and it's made you double think, and go, I shouldn't really do this as much, or and 100%. And like I say, for me, the big thing I got from that weekend was I felt re-energized and knowing that I could do more. Do you know what I mean? And I should set more goals. And I think, which I think is another topic to go on to, which is a separate one, is the people you surround yourself by. Because for me, being around a lot of, I'd call them inspirational, people, it did make me kind of reevaluate my goals and think, I can do more, I want to do more. And I think a lot of people will have that, especially this time of year, January. You know, January, February, start of the year. People want to set goals, and there are all those hurdles that we've spoken about. Do you make them too big, too small? What do you want to be remembered by? That's the big one. I got asked that question once, and I said, and I probably still would give the same answers today if anyone asked me. I want to be the person who, he won't change the world, but he'll have an impact on the person who does. Do you know what I mean? I'd like someone to maybe look at my life, the things I've done, and then kind of take that with them and have a positive impact, which maybe does change the world. I wouldn't like to pressure myself on changing the world, but maybe I've inspired the person who does.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of goal to try and have a better life, but it's fascinating.
Come on then, where are you up to on your goals for this year?
So my goal was we had a guy in the Iceland trip, Mike Bates, who's currently rowing across the Atlantic, an amazing guy who he does jiu-jitsu. And I looked at jiu-jitsu and I was talking to him about it. And Brazilian jiu-jitsu is a kind of martial art that takes 10 years to get to a black belt. And I thought I need one of those long-term goals that I can kind of constantly chip away at, a 3-time-a-week gym session, which will kind of lead to that bigger goal. And I've been going to it. Done 5 sessions, I think it is now. And it's one of those goals. I just wanted a kind of slow burn of like, because I know myself, when I have got that kind of physical activity, which is another topic in itself, but I'm going to the gym, I've got routine, I've got purpose, and I've got that bigger goal. That's normally when I'm at my best. And thankfully, since I got back from Iceland, I've got those sessions in and kind of started on that journey. What about you on yours?
It's interesting what you say there. You just brought Mike Bates into it, who was out in Iceland with, and I'm following his journey. I know you're following his journey, rowing the Atlantic Ocean on his own. Right.
That's some goal.
Now, here's the thing. In my goal, I'm relentless on what my goals are. I'm relentless at them. There is no way on this earth I could row the Atlantic. And I think sometimes, I think there'll be people who see the amount of hours or the drive, like you said, God, I look at you, Paul, and how do you do that? Well, I look at you and go, how do you do what you do? How do you, I go for a run. I run like 10K in 55 minutes and I'm dying. And I think it's impossible to run that any. We're all good at certain stuff, right? Yeah. By the way, Mike Bates is running. He put on day 5.
Hands,
do you see it on Instagram? Yeah. So he's the Atlantic Grappler on Instagram, and he's only got about 5 days left now. But he put all these blisters up on his hands, and I thought that would be the thing that would stop me. I'd be like, well, I was going to row the Atlantic, but now I've got blisters on my hands. Can't do that. Can't do that. And yet he's like. But that's his goal. And I think what people have got to understand is your goals can't be anybody else's, because if I compare, I could not do what you've done. I would argue.
Vice versa.
Yeah. And none of us could do what Mike Bates has done. And that's the key, I think, to goal setting, is that you don't not do them. Because I think that's the wrong attitude to have. But what you do, I think, is you look at what you're connected with, or what you're good at, or what
you're passionate about.
And you set them, and then you can absolutely outperform. Yeah. Like in my world, I feel like I can outperform. For drive, you have to be at a real. I'm at that level. But you put me in a gym.
Yeah, it's got to be specific.
Yeah,
and that's what'll be great. Hopefully, the comments and what people see is people might listen to this and go, well, fuck running my own business and doing that. Fuck running 10K in 37 minutes, but there'll be goals there that people have, which maybe we wouldn't even think about it even doing. And I think we could probably speak about goals for like another half an hour, to be fair. But it is interesting, as it was every time I speak about goals, ambitions with you. Probably leave it there.
Yeah.
I think that's probably about half an hour chat done on goals. And I genuinely would love to hear what you think about goals, what you think about mine and Paul's goals, our view on goals, and what you think at home. Share what your goals are, tips for keeping goals, etc. And if you want us to revisit this, I'm sure we'd be more than happy to. Hope you've enjoyed episode 1. I have. And see you next week.